Guten Morgen. Good morning, friends. Well, actually, it's hitting afternoon now. It's almost noon. So, we've got work to do. Hopefully, you all saw the live stream this morning covering the very cool stuff in Krita 5. I will add one thing to it, by the way, is that one of the disadvantages Krita has had is not having a procedural workflow in the sense that you can reuse assets and changes to those assets will propagate as you reuse them in future scenes. So an example of that would be, I've got a scene here with Melchizedek, let's say, where theoretically I could use a level from a previous scene, so I don't have to redraw him, right? And if I were to go in and modify that level and resave it, all scenes that reference that level would be updated, right? Well, actually, it's that capability has been in Krita for a long time. I tested it here by just pulling up a couple graphics, which is this old ancient Salt and Light logo, and I did some animation on it. But what I did was when I dragged the image into Krita, I dragged it as what's called a file layer. So you drag it on top, and when the pop-up menu comes up, you just say insert as a file layer. And what that does, it makes it so it's not paintable. So like right now, if I try to paint on this, I can't. Well, that's because it's referencing the file. So it actually turns out that if you, you know where this image is on your hard drive, and the reason it's all scribbled over is because I loaded it into Krita, did the animation, saved this, modified the drawing, and then reloaded the Krita file to see if those changes propagated, and indeed they do. So yeah, it actually is possible to have that type of a procedural workflow. And the only reason I bring it up is because one of the things people are going to want to do with these transform masks in Krita is set up a rigging type of situation, and that means reusing assets from earlier shots. Now, for those of you who are in a panic because you think I've abandoned Tahoma2D, don't panic. We're still good. The current shot is being done in Tahoma, and but I am pretty stoked about some things, with Krita going forward. So anyway, over here on the other screen, what I'm doing is we completed this sequence the other day, and so this is dovetailing from this conversation between Melchizedek and Asher, where Asher is going to launch into the backstory that really kind of acquaints the viewer with the entire show mythology, if you will, right? And so here we have Asher narrating, and,
many years ago, the land of Newsy was a prosperous place, you see, Melchizedek. People were happy, but then something bad happened,
and on it goes, which the bad thing that happened was ultimately a coup orchestrated by the evil Golek, in which Vespigi usurped the throne. So anyway, we get to the end of the backstory, and then what happens? Well, we need to come back to Melchizedek and Asher, because the whole premise with Asher's story was to tell Melchizedek some things about where he came from. Hence, we've got to add this final sequence to the beginning of the show. Hey, Darren. And in this sequence, Melchizedek, Asher, you really didn't tell me anything. And then Asher goes and grabs his walking,
no time, we've got things to do, places to go, people to meet, kind of thing.
Oh, look, hey, you didn't explain any of it.
Where did the time go?
That's basically the gag here, okay? So this is fun. This was basically a matter of drawing Mel once, and then I used the selection tool to just animate his hand sort of settling into place, and then his head. So most of the fun here is on Asher, where if we turn on the pencil test that I was working on yesterday before Tahoma so rudely failed me and blew up, I basically blocked in what needs to be covered in this sequence in a very sketchy manner. So if I solo this layer, you can see it's kind of a mess, but you've got Asher leaping up, reaching off screen, grabbing his pole, and then kind of in the sketch I had him put his hand up. I think the hand is actually not going to be that important now that I'm actually into it. But this is a cool exercise because It's truly full animation. I mean, 8 frames per second full animation is what I'm doing here. So, and as you can see, it pops quite nicely. Really does. And by the way, his mouth probably should be turned on. One of the things that helped it was you've got these two poses of Asher. So Asher's on the move, right? But what I did was I left his hand in the same position for those 2 frames so that it snaps from here to here. I could have tweened it, but I kind of guessed correctly, actually, that it would feel better if he kind of snapped from one position to the next. So, feeling pretty good about this. I will say I'm doing one thing unusually here, which is I'm actually using the my paintbrushes for the ink. So that's a bit of a change from what I've been. Hasn't been my normal practice lately, but basically I just felt like doing it, and I like the way it's looking. So what the heck? The main thing I get with the my paintbrush is that I can kind of sketch it in a little bit, and then tighten it up, you know, as needed. So anyway, that's what I'm working on. Got to get the ink and paint done on this guy, and the question here, of course, becomes once he's got his walking stick, which is really much longer. I just did this so it can be closed, so it can be a closed shape. Is he going to go ahead and put up his hand? I think he probably should. Let's get to that after we get the rest of the tweening in here. So, okay. So hopefully a lot of people will check out the video I posted today on Krita 5, because it is really super cool. I've been ruthless in my criticism over the months of the Krita developers, because it always seemed to me that there were so obvious solutions to ways to make animation in Krita more capable. So I want to be just as lavish in my praise today. When I say they got it right, I'm telling you, I really think they got it right. And it is no exaggeration to say that if you're a Krita fan and you basically overnight wanted to fold most of the capabilities we have in Tahoma into Krita, I feel like they've accomplished it, at least for my workflow. Most of the stuff that I ever want to do is instantly viable now in Krita. So now, will I be continuing to stay mostly in Tahoma? Oh, we'll see. Don't know, don't care, actually. I like both programs, and given especially that Krita 5 so far, I haven't crashed it. I've tried. You know, I've kind of stacked it up with multiple transform masks and fairly large amount of animation data and blah, blah, blah. And so far, it's been crash proof. So I didn't expect that in a beta, but there it is. There it is, friends. It's what we get. So sometimes things go well. Now, what didn't go well is that the struts on my van, one of them, literally the spring broke, and so my van is not drivable. I'm waiting for the dude who always fixes my vehicle to give me a call. He seems to be a bit tough to reach today, so it is what it is. Fortunately, we're within walking distance of the grocery store, so if we actually needed to go get anything, we could just walk. So, well, in the socio-political arena, since I have nothing to do but sit here and draw, so I'm going to talk about the socio-political arena, which is kind of fun sometimes. So we've got this reporting going on today. And the reporting is, and I have to compliment Cyber Ninjas, if the reporting is accurate, what has happened is that the audit in Arizona is complete, and basically Cyber Ninjas are coming out and saying, you know what? Not only did we not find any fraud, but it turns out that Biden won by about 360 votes more than, at least in Maricopa County. I'm assuming that's what that is. But so all the on the one hand, the allegations of fraud appear to be false, but in addition to that, all the fears that progressives have had about the reported results, and the conspiracy supporting misinformation we expected to come from cyber ninjas, at least from the early reporting, has not come to pass. It turns out maybe those guys have integrity, and they're just reporting what they found, and they did exactly what you would hope they would do. And that's that. So now, and then for me, I got into a conversation with my extremely ardent Trumper friend on Facebook, and he is staunchly maintaining that this is all just a misinformation campaign. So I asked him quite explicitly. I said, okay, well then how do you explain the Cyber Ninjas result? Well, basically one of two things has happened here, I would assume. Either somebody has gotten to them, which that was actually the story back in, I don't know, December. The story about federal judges in the United States was they had all been either gotten to by the cabal, or so they were all on the take. Every one of them was corrupted, or their families were threatened, or pick your conspiracy. All these horrible things happened, and that's why Sidney Powell failed so spectacularly in court. It wasn't because she's a crappy lawyer. It wasn't because she didn't have evidence. It wasn't because she couldn't even freaking spell words right on her filings. No. Nope. It was because somebody got to those judges. And I'm serious here. I'm not being snarky. People really believed this. And I got a little impatient with my friend because I'm going, okay, back when these court cases were going on, you were making predictions on Facebook. You're saying this is what's going to happen, that's what's going to happen, right up till January 6th, claiming that Mike Pence was going to flip the election. He said it. I didn't say it. He said it. And I pointed out to him today, on every single point, literally 100%, every prediction he made through that period turned out, in hindsight, to be wrong. And 100% of the things I said at the time, which I thought, I felt came from the standpoint of a reasonably knowledgeable understanding of how the judicial system works, right? So I'd say, no, buddy, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think this is what's going to happen. 100%. 100% correct for me, 100% wrong for him. But at no point does he ever go, I guess I got that one wrong. No. Hey, dead penis. Not one single time has that happened. And I find that really frustrating from somebody who I greatly have loved and respected my whole life. I'm just going, really? That's your level? I'm not quite into that. I'm not respecting that too much. It's been really, really disheartening. And so I pointed this out to him in the context of asking this simple question. Okay, if we've got this result from Arizona, you tell me, you're the conspiracy theorist, you tell me what's going to happen. One of two things are going to happen in the next 3 days. Either it's going to turn out, the story's going to come out, that somebody got to those cyber ninjas. Those guys that did the audit in Arizona, somebody got to them, paid them off, threatened their families. That's what happened. Either that happened, it's a possibility. That is a possibility. Or we will expect the cyber ninjas to come out and say, hey, all this reporting you're hearing today on Friday is wrong. They're lying. It's not true. We found all kinds of fraud. Trump definitely won in Maricopa County. And this is just the fake news trying to lead you all astray. So I said to my friend, you tell me which is going to happen. Just take a stand here based on you think you're so well informed. You tell me what your prediction is this time. And he answers me back. He says, you're always right. And that pissed me off. This friend has not pissed me off like hardly ever over the years. I've disagreed with him on a few things, but he's never pissed me off. Today he pissed me off. Because it's like, okay, that's what we're going to do. That's the quality of human being I'm going to be here. This lifelong friend, I'm going to just dismiss you. I'm going to say, oh yeah, you're always right. Yeah, oh yeah, okay, it's fine. You're always right. I'm not going to engage. And this is what happens. There's two things that seem to keep happening. Is when confronted with a reasonable answer from a potentially well-informed person, he goes dismissive. And when it happens on the broader scale where his information has been debunked, he quits posting misinformation on Facebook and starts posting Bible verses. So it's always Bible verses. Hey, don't forget that, Jesus said not everybody's going to make it into heaven. So he's like Mr. Righteous, right? When he thinks he knows the way all these conspiracies are going to go, he's Mr. telling you the way it is, and damned if he cares if you think different because he knows and you don't know. Until his information is debunked, and then he's all Mr. Lovey-dovey Bible guy, telling you how important it is to follow Jesus. I'm like, really? I'm just like puke level disgusted with that behavior. I expect better from my friends. I frankly do. I mean, it's just like crap quality behavior. And I say that because this is a guy who knows me really well. He knows where I'm coming from. He knows I care about him, and I'm coming at this from a good place, and I always have been. And so it really is frustrating to. But this is what you deal with when you're dealing with a serious hardcore Trumper. This is what you deal with. It's pathetic. But there it is. It's the world we live in today. But the tide of, the socio-political tide in America is very much changing. And it's changing. Let me see here. I got to think about what I'm doing with Asher's left hand. Is the story available publicly? Yeah, everybody. You talking about Arizona, dead pianist? Everybody's reporting it. All the news outlets are reporting it today. Is that the official report hasn't been released, but the early draft indicates that there's no fraud found. Nothing. In fact, Biden won by more votes than the original count showed, only by a few hundred, but basically, so everybody's reporting it. But then if you go to Fox, dead silence. If you go to I would almost bet you, if you go to Newsmax or you go to the Epic Times, what you're going to see is nothing. They're going to do just what my friend does. When the information and evidence doesn't go their way, they go silent. They just don't talk about it. It's like, really? Yuck. I have a serious hard time with that kind of stupidity. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, I'm okay with being. What is the big, horrible fear about being wrong? About having made a mistake? God, don't these Trumpers realize that as Americans, we want to welcome them back into the fold here? We get that you're not going to get your way on some issues sociopolitically. Neither are we. None of us get our way. That's how America works. The whole beauty of and this is why I'm a centrist, the whole beauty of a republic, and people call it a democracy, but obviously it's really a republic. But the whole thing about our system of government is that you can't, even if you have a majority, you cannot get anything done unless you work with the other side. And so you always wind up with solutions, policy decisions that don't make anyone happy. But that's actually exactly how it's supposed to work. The gears of democracy are supposed to turn very, very slowly. Now, they don't always, obviously, but that is basically how it's supposed to work. The far right has told them, this is why there's this conflation between the far right and white evangelical Christians, is because they've told themselves this story that conflates the two. And they're imposing a lot of magical thinking on the socio-political tide because it's going in a way that scares them. They're worried about, they say they're not racist, and I take them at their word that in terms of how they want to treat other individual people, they're probably not racist. But that doesn't mean that they're not afraid of a real change in the complexion of their neighborhood. Okay, that's understandable, right? Hey Maria, it's understandable to be afraid of a change in complexion. But the question at some point has to become, is my fear reasonable or not? You know, I think Maria Torres, who's obviously Latino, or whatever word you use, Maria. I don't know if you use, Hispanic or Latino, or I don't know what word you use, okay? But, so forgive me if I get it wrong. But, I think Maria's just as good or just as valid or of a person as, a white guy. They're just people. Hell, in the DNA, we're all related anyway, and it's provable. What is the big freaking deal here? So the Republicans are running scared right now because what's happening is you're seeing in multiple fronts. Like right now you're seeing increasingly more and more all the doctors in in Texas, Louisiana, Florida, it's becoming common knowledge that literally nobody's dying of COVID except the unvaccinated. It's just, we don't like it, but the data doesn't lie. And so on the COVID front, the misinformation problem has become untenable. You can't credibly support the lie very well anymore. It's becoming increasingly day by day more difficult to support the lie. Well, you're seeing the same thing with the election stuff. The lie is becoming increasingly untenable to average people who may be Republican, but they're kind of looking at it, they're starting to go, wait a second. Maybe I've been misled here just a little bit. Right? And the fact is they have, because those who would mislead them have a lot to gain by misleading them. A lot to gain. It's called money and power, and not only that, some of them are, in fact, just ideologues. It's their right to be an ideologue. I mean, I want to emphasize this. If you want to be an ideologue, if you want to be and if I look at it and I say, well, you're not only an ideologue, you're an idiot, that's my opinion. I respect your right to be an ideologue if you want to be an ideologue. Okay, well, if you say, well, okay, Dave, that's how you feel, then what are you complaining about here today? And that's right. There's nothing to complain about. I'm making an observation that what's happening right now is on the election front, on the COVID front, and in regard to these election, what some people call racist, voting laws in some states. What's going to happen, I believe, in 2021, I think there's going to be a surprise. I don't think I don't think the Congress is going to flip back. It could happen. It usually does in the midterm for president. But I think what's going to happen, especially if the Republicans don't come up with a real revision of their platform that's way more palatable to average people. Okay? In other words, a platform that doesn't depend on the conspiracy theories of the fringe. If they don't come up with that platform, all they're going to do is increasingly lose the ability to win an election. Look at what happened in Georgia. I've said this before. It should never be a case where Georgia would have 2 Democratic senators. That's like impossible. And the only reason it happened was literally because of Donald Trump. And it was a backlash against it. And what the voters in Georgia did was said, okay, we're going to come out in droves. We're going to do anything and everything in our power to get that vote cast. And what happens? They wind up winning both Senate seats? What does that tell you? This is what the Republicans are afraid of. There is a juggernaut of progressivism and, I don't know, let's call it racial egalitarianism in our country that is not going to change because the very thing they fear the most is happening. They're literally becoming outnumbered by people of color. And there's nothing that's going to change it because they're not having babies. Now black people's babies, from what Val tells me, their numbers are going down too. So it's really the Latino population that's making the big difference in terms of the change in the complexion of the population. In our area, of course, we've got a lot of Asians as well. But, okay, so this is a quick turn, baby. All right, I think what I'm going to do is go down here and work backwards. So that if that's going to be his shoulder there, I think it's really cool. But again, I think we all want to, at least I would hope, we all want to welcome one another back into the fold, but we've got to be reasonable. You know, we've got to come to a middle ground where we can agree to disagree. And sometimes when you're not in the majority, that means you lose. You know, you just lose. You don't get to have your way in terms of policy. And frankly, you know what? Conservative policy has held sway in the United States since Reagan, really, for the most part. You know, the conspiracy theorists will claim different, but the data is clear as far as I'm concerned. You know, progressives have had some victories here and there, of course, but basically it's kind of like my sense is that they've had their day, and they're absolutely in a panic because they know the party's over to a large extent, and the only way they can change that is to convince their followers, their voting population, to be so afraid of this change that you're willing to embrace radical solutions to the problem. And these voting laws are just that. They're clearly designed to make it more and more difficult for people of color to vote and blah, 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 blah. Now, not 100%. Okay. In other words, hang on one second. I want to check the temperature in the house because the outside it's getting a little warmer today, and we had the heat on yesterday, and I think it's getting a little warm in here. So hang on a second. I'll be back in about 1 minute. Wow. Yeah, it was just like 74 or something. It's a little toasty. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of put a little mark here where I think his elbow is probably going to be. He's kind of leaning into this. So this is going to be a little bit foreshortened, I think. And now we got this move. Okay, I thought I had an indication of where his elbow was going to be, but maybe not. Oh, I see. I did it on when he moves back. Okay, so let's just kind of put that there. We'll say that's straightening out, so let's say the wrinkles are going to kind of fall there. So we're just, you know, as I always say, work from the known to the unknown. I'm looking at the things I'm sure I know where they're going to be, and then I'll connect them up. So he needs his cuff here. This feels a little off because he, as I say, he is kind of leaning into this situation. So let's do that. Okay, so now his body's moving forward, but his elbow's kind of getting left behind. That's not bad. It does punctuate the motion, but this line is a little off. Probably more like that. Maybe. Maybe. So yeah, this has been an interesting day in terms of the socio-political conversation. I'm really, really disappointed in my friend though for not. I swear, it baffles me. It really, really baffles me because it's like if you really have all this inside information, why don't you produce the evidence of it? You know, why don't you give me something more than these stupid quotes from the Epic Times? You know, a quote-unquote news outlet that doesn't make any bones about being blatantly partisan. You know, and that doesn't mean that the mainstream press isn't progressive-leaning. Of course they are. Of course they are. Whoop-de-doo. Take your information with a grain of salt, is what I say. Understand that you're gonna get some information left out by the people you're listening to, and there's information left out by the people you hate. You know, everybody's trying to spin the story to their advantage to one degree or another. it's not like the worst thing in the world. So given that, if let's say that I'm right about that, okay, let's just say that's true. Well, then the question you would ask yourself is, then what's the big thing about fake news? Why would you have to drum it up into this big, massive conspiracy religion? Well, it's because you need a big conspiracy religion to imbue fear into people. Because the whole point is to imbue fear into people. This is why you're going to see somebody dismissed out of hand as a socialist if they suggest a progressive program of some kind. Okay, I like this program. It's a little bit left-leaning, let's say, so now you're a socialist. Well, the whole point is that there's a mental and a psychological association, an emotional association with what socialism means, the word, to some people. So you're obviously just trying to manipulate people's emotions, because then no one has to think, right? No one in that scenario has to think. All they have to do is be afraid, and then they're gonna vote the way you want them to. You know, this is not complicated. This is not complicated at all. Okay, so let's just kind of put his cuff here, and we'll kind of, I don't want to lose it, so here, and do it like this. Okay, so yeah, I'm actually going to try this. This is probably a little risky. Yeah, maybe. This might work. So I'm putting the cuff where I think it would land while he's doing this other stuff, so that what happens is, you know, I guess this is going to be, obviously this is only one frame, so I'm basically packing all the foreshortening in here. So this probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but what I'm trying to do is delineate where his hand is going to wind up. Okay, and this doesn't quite work because I repeated this drawing, so this is bad. I got to hit a duplicate here and then get rid of that and get rid of all of this. I think I can fill in empty cell. Oh wait, they're not empty, so obviously that won't work. Okay. Okay, so now I can take this back out, erase that, and let me double check the previous. Okay, so this is going to be here, and the idea is that his hand is going to, oh, you know, not another word. Sorry, can't discuss it anymore. We've got to go. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. So, yeah, what a crazy time to live in. It is really a interesting time to be alive, I must say. So I'm feeling good about this scene, this shot. I feel like I'm doing a better job of frame by frame animation, you know, at 8 frames per second. I want to take this shot right here, though, I think, and make this less of a move so that he snaps from, yeah, he kind of snaps. This feels too gradual. So we got here, maybe one tween, but this one's not working. Let's erase that line. And let's erase that line. Let's do this over again. So what I'm going to say is, I want it to stay down. Hope this is kind of making sense. And then I'm gonna even have it down there so it really snaps. He says,
Oh, look at the time.
or
Oh, no time to discuss it.
That I think that's working. Okay. So now we'll kind of give preference here to his hand. Well, obviously here we don't see his hand. So we'll just kind of go like that. And here, I guess, again, we don't really need to spell it out. Now here I want to be careful. And by the way, if I hear from the guy that works on my vehicle, I'm going to have to probably stop live streaming. Just so you know. Okay, so we'll go ahead and let his lanky old hand kind of extend down a little bit, like so. And then here what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and reuse this one. Control C. Erase that. Hit the S key, Control V, and I'm just going to move it a tiny bit because I really want it to snap into that position. Yeah, that was better. That was better.
Oh my, no time to chit chat.
Okay, cool. I like what I see, people. Okay, so now we got to get. Let's just deal basically with his arm. Okay, this one, I'm actually going to onion skin that one just so it's kind of close. Yep. Yep. I like that. Okay, now let's catch. Boy, that makes the onion skinning. I mean, the onion skinning makes it look pretty confusing. Okay, so this is highly foreshortened. Okay, so let's go, like, well, that's not right. Okay, so in other words, his garment's being left behind, as you can see. And then it would start to follow back. Like so. And then it would settle. More or less like that, I think. Okay, so to be clear, this contour is the outside of the yellow fringe or tassel or whatever. It's the outside, not the inside. That's important to remember. So if I put a line out here, that's wrong because this is the inside of it, not the outside. Okay, so here I'm gonna work backwards. I'm gonna come here, say, okay, we got this sort of thickness to it. It's thinning out a bit there because it's being stretched this way. You're basically looking at it laterally. And then it kind of finally settles to what it actually is supposed to be. Okay, so this is what I've been doing and then just reviewing this. Yeah, I mean, that feels pretty good. I like the snap in the pole. If you're wondering about that, if you got to slow it down to see what really happened, but basically he pulls it and then we've actually got one frame that's ridiculous, right? And then a little recoil. Boop, boop, boop. And so I don't always do that, but in this case, by gum, it felt good. So there it is. There it is, friends. So keep going. Just trying to, again, keep it loose. I'm trying to just suggest to the eye the things that you're seeing here. You don't necessarily need to draw them. Eventually, of course, you have to draw them, but and this is going to actually turn from convex to concave, if you will. And I'm really allowing for a fair amount of squash and stretch here. So basically here gravity takes over and we should be pretty much straight down to the ground. Okay, so now we need to deal with this contour. And we probably should do this side of it first because it's going to be bumping into this one if we're not careful. So these need to run really tight together. Like so. And this is all just cloth flopping around, really. And there we go. Okay, so let's get back here. Get that in there. This is the part that's going to be colored in yellow, in case you're keeping score. Okay, so now what about the outside of his coat? Cloak, I guess would be a better word. So I'm going to go ahead and just let those flow together like that. We'll kind of do this the Alex Ross way, where we just sometimes use shapes to just suggest what's going on. Okay, this is fine. Close that up. Boom, boom. We'll let that settle. And fully settle there. Okay, so we'll, and by the way, he needs his cuff here. Cuff. Hello. Uh-oh. Better save my work. I just introduced a bit of a hiccup. Well, I'm a little disappointed. This is, to me, what I'm doing here today is really kind of cool work. I mean, this is good old-fashioned pencil test animation sort of thing, you know. It feels good. And so, somewhat unexpectedly, there's only 3 people watching. It could be the time of day, though, because I usually don't live stream at this time. But it's, we'll probably get a lot of views on the back end, because this is super cool stuff. Super cool stuff, friends. See what I'm doing? I'm just feeling those contours. You know? Oh, I see what I did here. I'm going to take those out. Basically, I made his... I don't know quite what I was thinking there, but... Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make this pretty... very smooth and simple. Okay. Now, for our purposes, this... we're only going to see the one part of the yellow here. So, okay, so little tiny hint of it there. I think that worked. Now we're going to have to basically sneak his lip sync in right there. But I think that'll work. Boom. 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 Close that shape. Whoops. Kind of got that off by a bit. Okay, so now we gotta, again, close shapes. Now we could actually leave this open to a degree because this is all going to be filled in the same color. Well, no, it's not. Strike that. We got the yellow part right there. So we need to close that. Gotta get these shapes closed so they can fill. This obviously needs to be closed as well. Yeah, I hope guys don't mind me ranting a bit about the whole stupid conspiracy thing. It's been quite maddening to see. Quite maddening to see. But I actually firmly do believe that the goofy stuff is becoming increasingly difficult to it's becoming increasingly difficult to make a credible argument to defend the conspiratorial position, because just more and more evidence and stuff is coming out every day, you know. Hence, they seem to be becoming more and more panicked, and for a good reason. You know, it's been stated that what Republicans are afraid of is that if they don't fix the voting process, they'll never win another election. And the numbers actually support that view. They're not wrong. It will become increasingly difficult for Republicans to win unless they actually do the right thing. And you know what that is? It's so obvious. They've got to revise their platform. They got to come up with a platform that's more inclusive and basically appeals to people that they currently would love to just dismiss. You know, kind of like my friend did to me today on Facebook. Just dismiss you. Yeah, I don't agree with your point of view. So, oh yeah, fine. You're always right. You're always right. Not going to engage because it's easier to just dismiss you and treat you disrespectfully. Ticked me right off, I am here to tell you. I'm not into that behavior at all. Okay, here we go. Excuse me, sorry. Alright, I'm going to turn on the fill check tool. Just see if we got any holes. Aha, there's one right there. And where the heck is the hole? Ah, right there. Very good. Okay. Looks like we're in good shape. Spider. Now, Spider, as I recall, is... you're kind of right-leaning, right? If I'm remembering correctly. They need to remove mail-in ballots and make IDs mandatory. I completely disagree. I don't... There is not a credible argument to be made for the removal of mail-in ballots. And if you say that there is, okay, I accept that. That's your position. Based on what? Where's all the fraud that maps to mail-in voting? Where is it? And you can't just cite something you heard on Newsmax or something you heard on the Epoch Times or something you heard from Fox News. I demand the same thing that a court demands. Evidence. The reason Sidney Powell failed so spectacularly in court is because there was no evidence. She was making filings and accusations. Obviously, I mean, look at the whole. Look at the way she's being sued for billions of dollars, very credibly, by the way, by Dominion Voting Systems, because she was just making stuff up. So if you're going to say mail-in voting is a problem, okay, fine, make your case. Where has it failed so badly? I'm right-leaning. I'm a conservative, not a Republican. Okay, fine. But if you say remove mail-in ballots, then make your case. I do not believe you. I think you are wrong. Okay? I think you're patently wrong about this. There are states, I think it's Oklahoma, where mail-in voting, they've been doing it for decades, and it's worked extremely well. And again, when you do these audits, you know, what are you looking for? You're looking for some kind of evidence that something went wrong. And they say, well, no, all these dead people voted. Okay, show me the evidence. Yeah, I can find evidence of a couple dead people who voted. You know, in a couple of these states, when they actually dug up the evidence, what they found out was that the only fraud that actually did take place was done by Republicans. You know? It's like, really, dude? So if you're going to say you can't have mail-in voting, fine. Make your case. Based on what? And if you can't make your case, there have been thousands and thousands of ballots that were never turned in. What's just false? That mail-in voting works? Thousands and thousands of ballots found that were never turned in. Now, you won't be able to post a link in the comments, but go ahead and post me something descriptive where I can find actual evidence that that's true. I've heard that claimed a zillion times. I mean, these claims are nothing new. Okay, so just making the claim doesn't mean anything. Utterly worthless, just making the claim. You have to back up the claim with evidence. There's no way. What you're saying is so ridiculous that it's comically tragic. Here's why. Because if they actually found thousands of votes that were never turned in, it's not necessarily the case that those votes would be counted. I know Arizona has turned over the forensic audit information, and the result was no fraud at all. In fact, Biden in Maricopa County actually won by, I think, 360 votes more than what was reported in the county. So yeah, there was a little bit of error factor, and it favored Biden, not Trump. Okay, so now what is your point about Arizona? They've released the numbers showing tens of thousands of fraud ballots. Okay, where are you getting your information from? Seriously, where did you hear that? Who told you that? And why in the name of God do you believe it? Okay, let's see it. I'd love to see the evidence. I don't believe it. I think you've been told this by somebody. You've been told it by a trusted source of some kind. And instead of vetting the information, you've just chosen to believe it. Because again, if it was true, then there would be a tremendous outcry, by the way, not just from the right, but also from the left. We who lean left do not want voter fraud. I've said this before. If Trump won the election, we want him to be president. Truly, honestly and truly. I have no problem with Trump having won the election. I have a problem with stupidity. Okay, that's what I have a problem with. People who willingly choose to be stupid because they're afraid to face simple facts. Because it makes them look silly, because for a brief season of time they chose to believe a story somebody made up because you believing the story benefited them in terms of their quest for power or position. So, again, not the recount you're referencing. The actual audit was just released yesterday. Okay, your statement 99% of the left doesn't care if Biden won or not. They just don't want Trump in office. Okay, first of all, factually, that might be true. But it's a diversion. What you just did was you deflected from actually facing reality here. Okay? You say not the recount you're referencing. I'm talking about cyber ninjas. Okay? The audit, if you can call it that, where it turned out it looks at this point like it turns out everyone was wrong. Why? Because those on the right who were sure that there was all this fraud, it turns out there wasn't. And those on the left who were really sure that no matter what they found that Cyber Ninjas was going to claim there was fraud, turns out they were wrong too. Turns out everyone was wrong. It's looking, from early reports, that actually Cyber Ninjas just made, there's a preliminary report, and it turns out that they just really didn't find anything. You think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm wrong? And if you think I'm wrong, based on what? Where's your information? Tell me the news source. You can't put in a link, but you can tell me the news source. Tell me exactly where to go where I can find this information that says that there's tens of thousands of fraud ballots and that there's evidence of it. Now, what you're going to say is exactly what I would expect. Well, these are early reports. See, this is what I told my Trumper friend on Facebook. I said, okay, friend, you're taking this position, so here's what I'm asking you. Make a prediction. You made all kinds of predictions back in November, December about what was going to happen in the courts, and you were wrong on every single one, like 100% failure rate. Okay? Okay, make a prediction on this one. You're so sure. And I said, which is it going to be? I'll give you two options, and if there's a third option, you tell me what the third option is. Here's my three options. My two options, I'm sorry. Option one is that by Monday, Cyber Ninjas is going to come out and disavow these reports that are making their way around all the news agencies right now. Everybody's reporting this early draft report, and Cyber Ninjas is going to come out on Monday and say, oh, that's all wrong. That's all fake news. They jumped the gun. It's all wrong. We actually found all kinds of fraud. Okay, that's going to happen. Or somebody on the far right fringe is going to claim that actually Cyber Ninjas is lying. They found all kinds of fraud. But somebody got to them, threatened their families, somehow incentivized them to falsify the data. Yep, more conspiracy. So I said to my friend, well, which is it going to be? Is it going to be that somebody got to them? Or is it going to be that they're going to come out and say, you know what, all this early reporting has been absolutely wrong. This is false. This is fake news. So I'm like, which is it going to be? And your answer, after, now this is dramatic, Spider. You just made the claim. Okay, you made the claim kind of sideways. You didn't explicitly make the claim, but kind of sideways. You made the claim that they found all kinds of stuff. They found all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of problems here that we're all going to find out about. And I say to you, well, how do you know that? Obviously, if you think you know that, you found out about it somewhere. So my question is, where'd you find it out? Pretty simple question, isn't it? Very simple question. All it requires is an honest answer. So do I get an honest answer? No. Here's what I get. I know nothing's going to happen about it. Those Democrats control Congress. That's what's going on. See, you did what my friend did on Facebook. You never answered the question, because when you were pinned into the corner and you had to give an honest answer and tell the freaking truth about what you believe and why you believe it, you're refusing to answer the question. Well, that's exactly what people do when they've chosen, like fools, to believe stories from non-credible sources, and then when they're pushed to support their story, they can't do it. That's what Sidney Powell did. That's why she's being sued for billions of dollars. Get it? This is not complicated. It only seems to be complicated if you are married to a view that has no support in objective reality, and now you have to face the embarrassment of admitting that. And what I say to you is, admit it. We love you, man. It's all good. You're welcome back into the fold. It isn't even a problem. Just don't be an idiot. That's all I'm asking. Everybody makes mistakes. It's just not that big of a deal. What I have a problem with is just the lack of integrity I see from these people who want to make all these claims, and then they got nothing. Say, okay, all right, we'll give you a chance. What do you got? Oh, nothing. No, I just heard it from the Epic Times. I just heard it from Newsmax. I just heard it from Sean Hannity. I heard it from Tucker Carlson. I can trust them. It's like, how stupid can you be? You still haven't. Okay, so you're watching live. Okay, you're watching live. You're watching the Arizona hearings. Okay, and what are you hearing? It's fine. You're finding the live hearing from Arizona. Are you hearing something interesting about it? Where do I go to live Arizona hearings? I'll go look that up right now. Better make sure this is turned off. Okay, so live Arizona hearings. And are you hearing something in these? You're looking at the Maricopa County election audit hearing, or Arizona State Legislature holds public hearing on 2020 election, or are these the same thing? I'm not sure. Well, this one isn't live. That was 2 months ago, so it must be this one. Okay, so here it is. And there's Rudy. Okay. All right. So now what you're saying is they're over now. They had hearing after hearing. One was a Senate hearing. And what did you learn? Okay, so now I've ranted and ranted. Tell me specifically, what did you learn from those hearings? You say they found... I understand you said up north here. You said that they found thousands and thousands. You did not say that, though. If you were quoting Rudy Giuliani claiming there were 10,000 this or that, that's fine. That may be what Rudy said. That means nothing. I'm talking about actual forensic evidence where he's not just making claims like he does over and over and over and over and over, but he's actually got some evidence that's credible. And by the way, evidence that sounds credible to you or even to me is not necessarily credible evidence at all. I'm serious. I'd love to hear it. I would absolutely love to hear the credible evidence if it exists. And I'd be the first guy to say, you know what? I was wrong. There was a problem here. I was wrong. It's not that painful. Like my old friend Jerry used to tell me in college. He said, Dave, you know, crow doesn't taste that bad. If I'm wrong, I'll eat crow. No problem. I have made mistakes in my life. Okay, in the live hearings, there were numerous professionals that have been involved in numerous election audits, show that there was in fact fraud. Okay, we'll leave it at that then, and I'll look for that on my own time. I'll search it out, and I'll see. I'll see if this is just a cursory report repeating an interpretation, or whether we've actually got some credible stuff that then obviously would be followed up legally. Followed up on many levels, and we'll see where it leads. My strong suspicion is. So the question then becomes, if all this is true, because this is going on, the question becomes, well, what about this early reporting of the Cyber Ninja results? Is that all just fake news? Now this live stream, it looks like it went for it looks like it went for 2 hours. So what I'm going to do is it doesn't look like it's going live now. So if you're seeing something different than me, there's 100 legal reasons and logistical reasons why you wouldn't necessarily do, because look, we're in a climate right now, okay, where we go through these processes like they did in Georgia. You go through multiple processes, and then somebody says, well, you know, there's just people still have questions. Really? Okay, and so it's like, well, we have ways of dealing with this stuff, and we've done it over and over, and it's like worked for hundreds of years kind of thing, you know? So what more do you want? Well, we just want one more. I get that. Okay? Okay, well, I don't know if I'll be live, but you feel free to message me. So what I'm going to do is I'm pretty sure this, to be clear, what you're saying is live, this hearing, it looks to me like it's over. And yeah, it does look to me like the actual hearing is over. Does that concur with what you're seeing? Because if it does, then that's cool, because that means I've got a 2.5 hour long video I can watch. And maybe I'll turn out to have questions too. It hasn't happened yet, but man, oh man, this might be the first time. Okay, so let's go File. Let's save everything. You know, Raphael Warnock in Georgia was just elected as possibly facing charges due to growing evidence showing he helped with election fraud. That may be. And if Raphael Warnock was involved in committing election fraud, I am perfectly comfortable with the legal process giving that man a serious spanking. I'm perfectly okay with that. That if that happened, he shouldn't have done that, and he should be taken to task for it. Absolutely. Now, on the other hand, I absolutely do expect that there's plenty of people that don't like Raphael Warnock that would love to propagate that story, whether it's true or not. So it could be true, you know. And if it is, that's very concerning. Definitely, dude. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is... Oh, wait. These are all my stupid backups. I need to go up to here to my TNZ files. And what I need is actually these two. So I'm going to grab... Actually, I'm going to grab this, because this has everything in it. So I'm going to load it as a subscene. Load, I said. Excuse me. And so that gives me the ability to pilfer the palettes. Okay, dude. Not, you know, hopefully we can all still be friends, even though I've been fairly heated in my encounter with my friend on Facebook really made me mad. I just really felt like he was being pretty disingenuous and stupid. And it wouldn't be. I wouldn't feel that way if he hadn't done it and been proven wrong over and over and over and over again. The guy doesn't learn. You know, it's like, really, dude? Okay, he won in the same manner where between the off times, the counting from 11 p.m. to 6 p.m. jumped from a 75,000 counts to a 2,000 vote ahead. But nobody was supposed to be counting at that time. Dude, okay. I have heard that story so many times. It's been so completely forensically debunked. It's ridiculous, but okay. Okay, maybe it happened. All those recounts in Georgia, I mean, they actually have the physical... Oh my goodness. No, dude. You've been told a story. But this is what we have. I mean, this is what we've seen over and over. The story's been out there for months and months. It's been thoroughly debunked over and over. But no. But people still have questions. People are still concerned. Yeah, that's the important thing here. So, people are concerned. Evidence? No. Don't bother me with evidence. The important thing is my grandma is concerned. Just like I know somebody right now who is very concerned about vaccinations too. Even though literally 100%, well, okay, maybe 99.9% of the people that are dying right now are the people who are unvaccinated. And the one person I know personally right now who staunchly refuses to be vaccinated is sick. And we're a little worried about her, But if she comes out okay, then she certainly won't change her mind about how she feels about it. So, what do you do? What do you do, people? What do you do? That's how his name's been brought up. They actually found his name was involved. They only allowed recounts. Yeah, but, okay, fair enough. Spider lost somebody to the vaccine, so I can't argue with that. If you did, you did, so it sucks, and I'm sorry for your loss. That's not cool. But that does not in any way, change the statistical reality, unfortunately. The statistical reality is you're freaking ridiculously way better off to get vaccinated. But, yeah, like I said, there it is. Normal areas. Let's see what we have here. Not bad. It's funny. Once things quieted down from all this, I was kind of glad. Whoops. And it probably doesn't necessarily behoove me to dredge it back up, but man, I just see these same patterns over and over. I mean, look at it this way. The simplest way to look at the election situation is this. When the Republicans think that without redistricting and voter laws and blah, 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 in other words, if the Republicans think, objectively speaking, if literally everyone voted, okay, let's just say, if they're afraid of this situation, if everyone actually voted, we would always lose, okay? Let's just say that's what they're afraid of. Well, guess what? They're afraid of that for good reason. That is objectively true. Okay? It's objectively true. They would lose we're talking about presidential elections, but they would lose them all. That's why they've lost on the popular vote repeatedly, but even though they've been able to win the electoral vote. And I'm not criticizing that. That's our system. It is what it is. But the reality is the numbers are there for the Democrats to win if they get the vote out. That is literally true and really hard to dispute. Sucks for them. As I said, the solution isn't to look for fraud everywhere. If there's 10 Democrats in my little district and there's one Republican, and the Republican's freaking out because they keep losing, it seems to me there's only one solution available that makes any sense. And the solution is that the Republican needs to change his platform so that he actually appeals to the Democrats. Duh. That's the smart thing to do. That's what you have to do. That's what you've always had to do. That's the solution. Fix your stupid platform. Not look for fraud or make accusations left and right because you think fixing the system is the only way you can win and preserve your archaic status quo. It's like hearing a Republican talk about patriotism. It's comically ridiculous. They reveal over and over how little they really know about our founding fathers and people are concerned about things like systemic racism and all this kind of stuff. They're concerned for good reason. Geez, look at what happened in the 50s and 60s when everybody started moving into the suburbs. I know. Well, you can't live in the past and criticize people today based on what so-and-so did in the past. Yeah, that's true. To a degree. Alright. Rant. Well, and see, this is, Spider, you just said it all. The progressive side will be the downfall of the country. That said it all. You just said it all. You told me everything I need to know. That's the point. You just stated it. Thank you. That is the entire freaking point. This is something that Spider is convinced of. He's wrong. He's wrong. That's my opinion. Only in hindsight will we really discover who turned out to be right and who turned out to be wrong. But you said it all with that statement because it shows me what you are afraid of. You're afraid of AOC's agenda. I get it, man. It's all good. We all got stuff we're afraid of, you know? Perfectly natural. But this is the nation we live in, and it's not going to change. That's my whole point, really, about this, is that Republicans have to accept the fact that what they're afraid of is not going to change, because the population numbers aren't going to change. The future does not favor them, and it isn't because there's some evil socialist gremlin out there. Everything that has caused people to reject Republican policies is because of Republicans. It's their policy choices and the positions they take that have led certain populations to reject their platform and or their agenda. You know, it's 100% their own fault. Who else are you going to blame? You know, if I have policy ideas and my ideas are being rejected, who do I blame for that? Oh, voter fraud. That's who I'm going to blame. I'm not going to blame myself. I'm never going to look in the mirror. That's one thing I'll never do. Oh, no. Nope, can't do it. Scared to do that. Can't look in the mirror. Can't look in the mirror and say, oh, wait a second here. Maybe if things are kind of going sideways for me, maybe that's actually my fault. There's a novel concept. No. See, and let me tell you why that's not possible. That can't be possible. You know why? Because I'm a patriot, right? This is the religion. I'm a patriot. I'm a Christian. I go to church every Sunday. I'm a good person. I believe in not having sex before you get married. Now, I did it. Oh, I did it 3 or 4 times. And there was that one girl who had an abortion. You know, I don't really talk about that anymore because I got saved when I was 26 years old. Right? So now I know how bad that was. So now I'm really against that. That stuff's evil. That's bad. Even though I did some of it. But that was before I became a good person. That was before I was changed from the inside out. I, who can't simply look in the mirror and tell the truth about myself and the source of my own problems, am claiming that I'm a new, fresh, restored person. Something about that doesn't quite add up. Sorry. I see it over and over and over and over. It's why I don't identify as a white evangelical Christian anymore. Because I just see too much utter and complete stupidity in that subculture. And by the way, to be clear, that really isn't much of a criticism at all of the religion or its values. It's not. It's not a criticism of the faith. It's a criticism of the people. I've always said that the biggest enemy of Christianity, certainly in America, is Christians. It is. There's no question about it. Heavy duty, baby. It's what it is. I don't go to church every Sunday. I don't either. Pissed about higher taxes, more regulations, more socialized programs, relying on foreign countries for too many things. Well, I'll give you, Spider, I'll give you credit because it seems like I respect the fact that you seem to be a little more in tune with what you think and why you think it than a lot of people, that are right-leaning. And so for that reason, I do respect your point of view. Even if I fervently disagree with it, I certainly respect the not only what it is, but to a degree where it comes from. But I'm going to ask the hard questions, especially on stuff like this election fraud stuff. Is like, when I ask where you're getting your information, it's because I sincerely want to know. Because if I'm the one who's getting bad information, don't I want to know that? Oh my God, don't I want to be the guy who says, holy cow, I've been fooled? Of course I do. If I don't, I'm stupid. If I don't, then what I'm saying is I'd rather live in a delusion than find out the truth. How stupid is that? Why would you want to be that guy? Right? I don't want to be that guy. So if you can show me some evidence of this or that or the other, I'm always going to be happy to take a look because I don't want to be the idiot in the room. I mean that as sincerely as can be. And so far, in any discussions I've had with people on the right who have made these allegations about voter fraud, you've done better than most, frankly. Okay, so since you brought it up, we'll go here. Okay, I tend to philosophically, I agree with you that let's call it a leftist overemphasis on globalism is not necessarily a great thing. Like, I'm not necessarily loving that. I want us to be self-sufficient. I want us to get manufacturing back here. All the things you're complaining about, basically I sympathize with. Here's the problem. The problem is that in the industries where, and this is partly because of what progressives call corporate welfare too. When you've got companies that are the biggest hiring companies or the biggest manufacturing companies, and significant parts of their manufacturing base are outside of the country, and they have the ability to do what Apple has done, from a tax standpoint, where they're actually shielding their revenues from taxes by keeping those revenues overseas. There are limits they impose on themselves in that regard, but basically a lot of people object to that, probably for good reason. The problem is that the juggernaut of globalism is really kind of non-optional at this point. So it's kind of like, well, we have to look at how do we manage our place in that equation. So where you're correct is probably from the standpoint of being competitive. Whatever we're doing, we need to do well and we need to do competitively so that we're not winning because of protections. We're winning because we've got the better product. We're winning because we're good. Not winning because we're bad. That's the difference. So if you're going to talk about, tariffs and sanctions and all these different kinds of things that basically create artificial limits, if you support those things, you're actually being non-conservative. Because what you're really saying is, we don't want to let the market just decide. And you don't, because it's painful. Because you're probably likely to lose in a lot of these arenas in which you want to compete. That's a big, big, big problem. But that would be like me sitting here on YouTube and bitching about Warner Brothers. Well, I don't like Warner Brothers. We should regulate Warner Brothers because they they've got this in with a TV network and that I don't have, and that's not fair, and blah blah blah. And then if I make a cartoon, and my cartoon fails, I may say, well, these other guys, they kind of had some political pull, and they met with the managers of that network, and I was, I got stonewalled, and I've got this wonderful cartoon, and I can't get a deal made on it because of these other competitors that are treating me unfairly. I submit that 99 times out of 100, the actual problem there is that you have a shit cartoon. Actually, that's my contention. Probably the problem is you just got a lesser product. You're probably just not that good. You think you are. And I'll bet you that's right. I'll bet you most of the time that's the actual problem, is you've just got a crappy product. In America, we've gotten away from that. We've gotten away from actually being excellent. It's hard. I admit it's hard. I'm sitting here every day trying to be excellent on my little cartoon. It's hard. It's work. You're right, and then it's what I'm saying about globalism. There's just no way around it at this point. We can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. We really, really, really can't. Globalism is reality. It's something we have a choice about at this point. So now we do have to negotiate, or I should say probably navigate the waters of that. We have to look at, and these are progressive types of ideas, actually. The idea of fairness. Fairness in trade. A Republican or conservative is going to be all about fairness when it's between us and those competitive countries. Why? I hate to say this. This sounds kind of snarky, but they're going to be about fairness in that climate because that's the climate in which they're losing. They're going to favor policies that aren't fair domestically because that's where they're winning, which meaning that they've got many, many years or decades of basically, to a degree, kind of getting a free ride. I mean, you see that in the military spending arena, where there's contractors who, just have a really, really sweet deal for decades. And then meanwhile, what's happening on the technology? And you're a military guy, if I recall correctly, so you might have an opinion about this. But look at what China's doing in terms of their investment militarily. At least from what I've heard, it's a really strong focus on the technology side of things, whereas we are doing that. Yes, we are doing that, but at the same time, we're still investing very heavily in very old school technology. I'm trying to think of what the military contract, like McDonnell Douglas, Boeing, these companies that really have a cake deal with their contracts. And then most ironically, we just had, I think, was it yesterday, we had this massive military spending bill, and oh my God, for the first time like ever, the Republicans are coming out against massive military spending. Why would that be? At a cursory glance, you think, well, it's because it's Biden who's doing it. Now, I could be wrong about that. I don't know, because I haven't looked into it, but it's like, really? Now the Republicans are coming out against the military. And the contention that I heard was, well, it's because there's this provision in it whereby women can sign up for selective service. That's the objection. Wow. Okie dokie, guys. I know locally I can't do a lot of changes. Talking to other people and getting other people to realize how big government is. We'll do more. Well, again, we're in the same. Val told me I think she saw something in the news that the military spending bill just went through. So I don't really know much about it. I'm speaking kind of secondhand here for sure. But yeah, like a $3.5 billion or no. I don't know. Maybe if it's the billions, it would probably be in the 300 billions. But it's a really big. For all I know, it's trillion. I mean, nowadays everything's trillions anyway. But yeah, big spending bill, military spending bill. So if I'm talking out the wrong end here, I will accept that correction because I don't. This is something I just kind of heard secondhand, that this bill went through and that this was the complaint. The complaint was about this business of women being able to sign up for selective service. Basically get drafted. So, I don't know. Am I wrong about that? No, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, it's all got to. If they want to get a 51 vote situation, then obviously they've got to roll everything into a single bill. It's just the reconciliation thing. So it is what it is. So I'll defer on that one for now because I may be talking out the wrong end, and it wouldn't be the first time. My basic argument is, just don't be in denial about the fact that you're talking out the wrong end. It has happened. It has happened before. So I'm a little bummed out that I haven't heard from Ruben because... What time is it? 1:30. Okay, so you agree the government is bad, so why support the party that wants bigger government? Well, okay, Spider, your entire statement is laughably ridiculous. If you look at the incredible acceleration of government spending, it began with Reagan, and no one has ever spent more money than Republicans. So the whole idea, I mean, that's such a great example of the mythology, the religion, the story, the lie. The idea that it's the progressives that are into big government is actually comically ridiculous. It is true that progressives favor regulation. But big government? Really? The government's never been bigger than it. It never got any bigger than it got under Bush. Well, even so, it doesn't matter who you're directing your question to. It's still a pretty misinformed question. If you want to talk about big government spending, it ain't the progressives that have done it, pal. It's the Republicans, 100%. And I got 50 years of history behind me to prove it. There's no doubt about it. The only president that actually balanced the budget in recent freaking history was Bill Clinton. Hello? So, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's where it's all just a story. It's all just a mythology that you've been told. You've been told the progressives are about big government, and you believe it. It's comically sad. No. It doesn't stack up to reality. But boy, it sure makes a good talking point so that we can all be really scared of that socialist juggernaut that's going to make America ungreat again. It's so stupid. There's no basis in reality here. And the best you're going to be able to come with, I'm not going to look at the chat, but the best you're going to be able to come up with to counter me on this is you're going to say, well, look at what Biden's proposing. You know, it's $3.5 trillion. It's the biggest ever. That's what you're going to say next, probably. Because it's the only leg you have to stand on in terms of accusing Democrats of being the ones who want to spend tons of money. Let's see. And what did you say? What you said is you argue it, well, Bush isn't really Republican. You're going to argue Obama spent more than Bush. You're probably right about that, by the way. But Obama was every bit he was a Dino. If Bush was a rhino, then Obama was a Dino. Okay? And so then the best you can come up with is that Democrats want socialism and socialism is big government. In other words, what you're saying is you can't say anything. Because what you're doing is you're pulling out your magic word. The magic word is socialism. Oh, we're all scared of that. That's scary. Socialism's scary. If you can put the socialism label on somebody, you've just freed yourself from actually having to defend your position. Because you just dismissed it with the S word. Oh, I don't have to support my argument and talk about how it isn't the Republicans that really want to spend all. No, I'm not going to defend my position. I'll just say the magic word of what we should all be scared of. This has been my objection to Republican politics in recent history across the board. They always argue from the standpoint of a promise of some benefit in the future that often, especially on the economic front, turns out to not be correct. And number two, what's the gremlin under your bed that you should be really, really scared of? If you don't follow our policies, this is what's going to get you. Be scared. That is the Republican byword for the last few years. It's the best they can come up with. When I talk about policies where the benefits turn out to be false, I've explained it here before. Look at the idea of deregulation in telecom. Look at the idea of deregulation in big oil. Look at the idea of deregulation, pick your poison. The asserted benefit is that it's going to, by getting rid of all this oppressive government that's imposing all these onerous regulations, what will happen is that the market will be open to all comers, and we'll have free competition, and prices will be lower, and quality will be higher. Oh, like we have in the American healthcare system, like we have in oil, like we have in telecom. No. What actually happens when you deregulate like that, like Republicans have been able to do over and over, is within a very few short years, you have an oligarchy where the 3 or 4 biggest companies, they can't be monopolies, that's illegal, but the 3 biggest or 4 biggest gobble up or crush all the competitors, and you wind up with a market, a huge juggernaut, multi-trillion-dollar market controlled by just a few mega corporations. It happens over and over. It happens predictably, and it happens consistently. And yet, conservatives still cling to the mythology. They still continue to tell themselves the magical story that, oh yeah, if it was just a free market, everything would gravitate to higher quality, lower prices, blah, 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 blah. But then when we compete with foreign countries, we want protections in place. Do you see any inconsistency there? Just a little bit? Yeah, it's a little inconsistent. And that's because internationally, we are afraid. Because the fact of the matter is, on many fronts, we either A, can't compete very well because we suck too bad, or because we have perfectly understandable dependencies on materials and parts, partner relationships with other countries. I mean, look at the computer industry, look at technology. Come on. Our dependencies there's nothing that's going to roll that back ever. Okay? So you agree on large companies, thank you. But if you want government-controlled stuff, you end up like China and have a Fed-ran company. Well, again, but I don't accept that. Okay, my position on China would be setting aside the potential human rights abuses, let's say, of the Communist Party. Setting that aside, we're just talking about economics here. Okay, I would say there's probably some things they do well and there's some things they do poorly. And the whole idea of a government-run system, frankly, right now, what we are actually seeing is they're real competitive. How is this possible? How is it possible that these evil commies are actually cleaning our clock in many arenas where we compete? How is that possible? I thought that was impossible. I thought it was impossible that when there's this heavy-handed communist government that they could actually win in the competitive marketplace. Oh, then the arguments can be, well, no, there's actually all these controls in place that are allowing them to compete and win unfairly. It's not because they have better products. No. It's not. It couldn't be that. That's impossible because that can't happen in our mythology. Our story says that can't happen, therefore it can't be happening. The problem is it might be happening. And at some point you kind of have to get over it. If they're cleaning our clock, that's the reality that you have to deal with. And if you're going to compete, it's best to compete by actually being good at what you do. Right? I think we agree about that. Well, okay, so you say, ha, 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 they're not competitive. And if there's an idiot out there in the crowd that's watching this, they might go, oh, okay. Well, Spider laughed at Dave, so Spider must be right? Is that what we're saying? Okay, so your contention is that the reason our healthcare system sucks is because of Obamacare. Internationally, there's absolutely no evidence for that argument at all. And it's like single payer. I mean, you look at Taiwan. Look at Taiwan, what they did. They've got a single payer system. It's sort of the quintessential single payer system. It's as socialist as you can get. What happened with COVID-19? Even a year before there was a vaccine, they kept it contained to, I think, 200 deaths. Right? You're young. You've owned your house for 12 years. That's awesome. Good for you, Spider. I admire the heck out of you for owning your home. I made that my goal about, it's been about, Well, I mean, I went through a divorce and I bought another house, and then I basically made payments for 3 years and then made up my mind to get it paid off, and I was able to do it in 6 months, which is pretty cool. So yeah, having your house paid for is a wonderful thing. It's the single best thing a young person can do in terms of their long-term financial situation. So, well done, my friend. Well done. Worked for your company. So yeah, you've got some pride. You know, you've worked since you were younger than most kids who work. You know, I get where you're coming from here. You feel like you paid some dues. I think you ex-military as well, aren't you? I believe. Started to work outside your family carrying business. So here's a guy who's basically saying, you know what, I've worked hard. I've seen a bit of the world. I know what it's about, kind of thing. And you probably do. You know, I totally respect that. I think that's cool. Alrighty here. I think I'm going to wrap it up here soon. This has definitely been an animated discussion today. Haha, I get it. Animated. Yep. Okay, I'm going to try hitting the F key, and yeah, let's do it this way. Ooh, that worked pretty well. We're doing the old lasso thing, people. We're doing the lasso thing. Actually, what I should do, let's see here. I guess his head moves there, so. I don't know, man. It's all good. I get, as I say, I get a little animated, especially on a day like today, with kind of the things that have gone down in terms of the whole Arizona thing and stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm perfectly happy to agree to disagree with people about some things, and I don't think it all matters that much. You know, we all realizing that our neighbors and our brothers are kind of more important than our political position is really, really important, in my view. Super important. So I can still love you, bro. I can still love you, bro, even if we wind up disagreeing on lots of things. And I think you'll agree. You know, you make a reasonably articulate judgment on a lot of issues, and I think you'll agree that I do the same. So it's all good. Let's go. Crazy, baby. I'm actually getting this pretty close to done, I think. Guess all this ranting and raving about politics is probably serving me well. Well, it's just really like taking a talking point is that thing to do and waste time. Okay, so Spider's, let's just say, conceding, I guess, that Bush was a garbage president. I don't know, man. You know, ultimately, we're all mostly concerned about the present more than the past. So, what's going on right now, I think, is okay, so I'm going to go way back to the beginning of my conversation today and basically just say this. I think what's going on right now in the United States of America is that there is a progressive juggernaut. I don't think it's going to change. I think the weight of evidence and some of these issues like the election, like COVID, are increasingly, and I would argue for good reason, tilting against the really, really the fringe part of Republicanism. So therefore, if they don't change their platform basically in a hurry, I think everything they're afraid is going to happen that's going to make it really difficult for them to win elections for like decades going forward is going to happen. I think it's actually already happening because the tide of public opinion is starting to, there's people on the right who are starting to go, wait a second, maybe I've been sold a little bit of a bill of goods here. I think that's happening. I could be wrong. I'm really just kind of guessing just on things you pick up here and there and everywhere, and you just get a feeling for where things are headed sort of socioculturally. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on right now. And clearly the Republicans are terrified of that, and that's why they've moved in a more populist, more radical direction, all the while claiming that they're not. But again, their arguments become less credible every day, it seems. So, what are you going to do? Luckily, the states like California, New York, Delaware, New Jersey lost enough people to lose electoral votes that'll help in future elections. Well, yeah, if what you care about is making sure there are Republicans in the White House. You said yourself that Bush was a crap president, but he was a quintessential Republican. I don't think anybody disagrees that Obama was in many respects, not in all, but in some respects, basically might as well have been a Republican in Democrats' clothing. And so at the end of the day, it does seem that this isn't about party, is it? The question isn't what party do you belong to. It's about policy. It's about what are your ideas. Do your ideas suck or are your ideas good? Can they be implemented? Can they even be arrived at in a contentious setting where people have very, very divergent views about what constitutes good policy? The centrist always wins the day. That's why Joe Manchin is so powerful. He's the Democrat who's basically, accused of being a Republican in Democrats' clothing. He's the one who has all the power right now. Think about it. It's always the centrist that wins the day. While everybody, and the centrist laughs all the way to the bank, I guess you could say in a sense, while everybody on the far left and right is complaining and crying about an outcome that the centrists knew perfectly well was going to happen in the first place. Saw it coming a mile away. But everybody that wants to be really, really religious about their extreme position then complains that they can't implement their agenda. And the centrist goes, yeah, duh. You're surprised by that? Okay, I think I got this going. And the way I did it, I think I can actually... I don't even know if I need to put the lip sync in there for Asher. So, I think I'm done. I don't want to bother to put the... I don't want to... I'm kind of sick of working on it, so... it's been pushing 2 hours, so... Anyway, be sure, everybody, to watch my... if you're not subscribed, be sure to subscribe. But be sure to watch my video on Krita 5 that I posted earlier today. It's about a half-hour live stream. There are so many cool things about Krita 5 that finally now make it the application that could unseat Tahoma. Because basically everything I'm doing in Tahoma on the animation side of things, I can now do in Krita. Krita 5 beta is outstanding, and they really, really got it right. Not in terms of what they did in terms of the changes, but also the choices they made in terms of prioritizing those changes. The thing that they got right, and just watch the video and you'll see, but the thing that they got right with the transform mask was I couldn't have picked a better feature to implement and get correct right out of the gate. Everything else is cake from here. And Krita just overnight became, for me, a viable tool again, because everything that I do in Tahoma that keeps me out of Krita, I can now do in Krita. So, pretty impressive, actually. So anyway, that's it. I'll just do a quick review, and Trump lowered taxes. Okay, hold on here. This is all these two guys. Got one guy that's kind of really progressive leaning, and one that's really conservative leaning. So it's all good. All politicians want more taxes. It's simply the language they use to propose and carry it out. Trump lowered taxes. Once you understand that, the argument is mute. He also cut federal spending until governors shut their states down. And that's the part of Trump that I think does deserve at least a reasonably complimentary look. That was one aspect of there's some things on foreign policy that I agree with Trump on too. Not a lot, but there are some. The Last Airbender, I haven't seen you in a while. I was watching that before I clicked on this video. That's why I downloaded it. Oh, are you talking about the, you're probably talking about the Krita thing. 141. Yep, that's what you're talking about. Talking about how they benefited my life. They fluctuated 5 times. Taxes have never went up or down. I believe that. My checks were bigger under Bush and Trump. Okay. You're not getting my point. Smaller under Obama and soon Biden with his tax hikes. I think that is a very real possibility. And of course, at the end of the day, it really does boil down to what are you getting in exchange for your taxes. My checks were similar under them. I guess depending on which side of the economic scale you're on. My checks were the same throughout all presidents. My wife and I barely make over 6 figures. Tax differences made a difference for us. Okay, if you're in the upper tens, 80 to 90 somewhere $1,000, I agree with you. You're gonna be sensitive to tax policy when it comes to income tax. You're definitely gonna be sensitive to it for sure. That's a very it's a vulnerable income level, because when you get much above it, tax policy doesn't really matter that much to you, and you're more likely to be heavily invested in things like real estate or whatever that kind of shield you somewhat against taxes. If you're below $50,000, you're hardly paying any tax anyway. You're paying some, but I mean, it's not that much. But when you're between 50 and 100,000, you're definitely a little more vulnerable for sure. I would agree with you. I've been around. I just don't talk like I usually do. All right, cool, man. Well, I'm good. I'm glad you saw it, Amar. It's very super cool stuff, and I'll be coming back to it. But today I just wanted to go ahead and finish up this shot, which, by the way, I think came out well. I'm kind of proud of it because it's basically full animation at 8 frames per second. But this whole sequence with Asher, there's a key on every frame. I mean, he's moving, baby. And I like the way it came out. I am proud of it. So I think that's it for me, guys. Again, seriously, yeah, 40%. Hold on a second, dude. They're wanting to bump our taxes up to nearly 40%. I work my ass off for my money, and the government wants to take more and more. I will say this. I want everyone to understand that I sympathize here with what Spider is saying. Okay. Spider and I aren't too far apart in terms of our income levels, but the difference between me and Spider is that my income comes from my own business, which I own a corporation, and if your money each year is coming from wages as opposed to coming from other income sources related to your business that I won't break down here today. I've broken it down on other videos, how you can basically save taxes by having your own business. But if all of your $80,000 plus per year is coming from wages, then yes, you are going to pay a hell of a lot in taxes. And frankly, most of it's probably going to be your Social Security tax, I would expect, not actually federal income tax. And then you may be getting spanked pretty thoroughly by your state. Because, here in Indiana, there's no deductions to get around the state income tax. It is what it is, So, yeah, 40% is a lot. I agree with you. So, anyway, that's it from me. I'm going to quit. Thanks, guys, for hanging in there with me and not bailing, despite the volatile nature of the conversation. It's really been a lot of fun, and I'm sure, Spider, if you and I sat down and had a beer together, we'd probably have a great time. And there's a lot I could learn from you. So don't take my occasionally strong opinions as being not open to the other idea, because I'd like to think I'm always open to the other idea. So, yeah, that's significant, the increase in your take-home pay. Yeah. See, when I first got into business, and I was a sole proprietor, I had that happen to me. I had a year where I just got slaughtered, because when you're a sole proprietor, you're actually paying both halves of Social Security. When you're getting wages, your employer is paying, basically you're each paying like 8%. But if you're a sole proprietor, you have to pay the whole 15-16%. And so you'll get slaughtered, just destroyed on Social Security tax if you're a sole proprietor or a partner. And then all of a sudden you have a good year and make a lot of money, you're going to get killed. So, anyway, I'm going to sign off, so you guys will have to, if you're going to keep arguing, you can argue, you'll have to argue elsewhere. Go on Discord or whatever. So anyway, that's it for me. And thanks, guys, for hanging in there. Hope it was fun from an animation standpoint, at least. And as you guys know, of course,